Neck-throughs, guitars, they're like a guy that you won't have a beer with you.
I want to hear what's pushing the notes.
Freddie King and B.B. King, Albert King, and let's not forget Burger King.
I don't want to blow my knuckle out.
Stainless steel is the work of the devil.
These go to 11.
From the East Amplification Tone Labs in Baltimore, Maryland, it's the Amps and Axes Show with your hosts, Jeff the Godfather of Low Wattage Amps Bober and Mick Marcelino.
Well, good day to you, Mr. Bober.
Yes, it is. Good day to you, Mr. Marcelino. Good to see you, man. Good to see you.
Guess what? It's good to see you, too. But guess what?
Jesus, could be anything. What?
As we're recording this, hundreds of rock stars and thousands upon thousands of people are walking around looking at instruments and
descending on Anaheim, California, looking like zombies.
Yes,
yeah.
and doing the NAMM show.
Right, it's called NAMM.
And
National Association of Music Merchants.
That's right. And we are without a guest this week.
You know, NAMM's amazing. NAMM just sucks everybody in.
Yeah.
I mean, I did it for years and years and years, and it's like, hey, man, what are you doing? Going to NAMM. Hey, man, what are you doing? I'm playing at NAMM. Hey, man, what are you doing? I'm working at a booth at NAMM. Hey, man, what are you... You know, it's like, yeah.
And it's only, only 4 days, right? It's Thursday through Sunday.
Right, Thursday through Sunday.
That's so weird. Because of the popularity of it, you would think they would just bang the whole week out. Like everything else. SEMA and all those other shows, you know, they...
What, an entire week?
Yeah, they go like 7 days or something. Something crazy.
I would never wish that on anyone. Oh, my God. I mean...
Too much partying, that's what I'm...
Back in the day, yes. Absolutely. Oh, stories I could tell you
that can't go on the air.
That's right. But honestly, after the first 2 8-hour days, you get what we all call the NAMM glaze, and you your eyes just glaze over.
Well, it's thousands of noises and notes and people.
The noise level is insane, and everybody, of course, we all hate. we hate the noise police, and we actually had some fun interactions with them over the years. It was so funny. We used to get the same girl all the time.
Really?
You know, you again, you know, and it would be so funny. She's just like, just do your best. Just turn it down. But everybody has to, show their wares,
Sure.
And the noise floor from the time they say go at 10 a.m. is high enough to really wear on you, and then it just increases as the day goes on, as we all expect.
Sure. Yeah.
But man, you can't imagine how much that din just wears on you and wears on you and wears. I'm telling you, man. I wouldn't wish 5 or 6 or 7 days on anybody. By the fourth day, you walk in there Sunday morning. And it's like, get this week over. I can't. I don't want to see another person. It's crazy. But of course, you do, because they want to see what you've got, and you want to show them what you've got. And it really takes it out of you, man. So I wouldn't wish that more than 4 days on anyone, my friend. Well, I don't have an enemy that I would wish that on. I'm telling you.
Well, from what I've seen on Instagram and Twitter and all, it looks like some of the companies have really done some cool things.
Yeah. Oh, always.
They always are stepping up. The Japanese, the Ibanez and ESP, they have gone crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, those guys, they must just have a team of people thinking of new ideas all the time. And, they can do that. That's their niche anyhow. They're always on the cutting edge, 8-string guitars, and it's crazy, but it's cool.
I have something I want to touch base on that's Japanese based in a minute, but yeah, it's like it really still amazes me how much people can keep under wraps.
Yeah.
Until Thursday show starts.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
It really, really is.
Carvin went crazy this year. They have the new Kiesel I guess is how you pronounce it. He was the guy, the original guy of the Carvin company.
Okay.
I forget his first name, but he was the founder.
Okay.
And now they have this line of guitars called Kiesel, and they're departure from like most of anything they've ever done. I mean, they're crazy looking. They're neck through, but it still holds their traditional way of building, but just some radical looking, very metal looking machines.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it looks like they've just redid their line or something. I mean, Carvin is one of those companies. They have to constantly be changing a little bit because they only sell direct.
True.
So
and you know, there are some mainstays there, especially guitar wise, that they've produced for forever.
Yeah,
you know,
they're DC series. You know, it's
that must be it.
direct Carvin and then the number. You know?
Right.
Yeah, I had the 127, which is kind of low. They have the 400 and the 600 is there. You know,
wow.
You get all the amenities,
Bells and whistles. Yeah.
1,000 switches, active, passive. You know, a quilted top on the thing that looks like a pillow. Everything is just top of the line. Block inlays, the whole bit. And I ain't got time for that. So,
and then they a couple of years ago they came back with the like the X100.
That amp's still kicking for them.
Yeah,
that's their deal. I mean, Steve Vai is a huge user of those amps. I mean, he has his own line. The
V3 or something?
No, it's the I'm sorry. Oh God, why am I drawing a blank? I'm gonna have to look it up. But anyway, they made a designer amp for Steve.
And it comes in the metal box.
Yeah, well they've punched like 5 different versions of it over the years.
Yes,
and he he was an X100B user years ago, and he was using those amps through the Frank Zappa days, even like some of the early days with David Lee Roth. Mm-hmm. And so they sat down and they...
he was using the X100Bs, I guess, at that time.
Yeah.
With Zappa and David Lee.
And then he did some Marshall stuff, he went over and did that. But then, Carvin kept calling him up, and I guess they sat and they worked on it forever. And the Legacy... The Carvin Legacy.
The Legacy, yeah.
That's his line.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I guess it really grew some popularity, that amp sells very well.
Yeah.
And so then they brought back the X100 because they all knew that that's what he used prior.
Right.
From what I understand, it's a different amp. It's not the same. They changed it. They put more gain into it. Mm-hmm. The originals were like old 800s, and the new ones are like really crazy high gain now. So they're not the same.
They should have just left the high gain in the Legacy and left the X100 the way it was.
They also have their V3 line, which is
right. That's the one in the metal box.
Yeah. Well, they had they had a couple versions of that too. Right. Now it's in the metal box, and everybody's got everything in a metal box.
I know. It's a lot cheaper than building a wooden box, believe it or not.
Yes.
It's a lot cheaper than building a wooden box.
But we got to say thank you to everybody for sending in their questions. I tweeted out the other day. We got some questions we're going to answer today.
Yeah, we're going to get them to... You know what? This is a good show to do that with.
Yeah.
And we'll impart some knowledge today, or at least we will attempt to.
And we want to thank everybody for clicking through the Amazon banner.
Yes.
And also the PayPal. We can't thank you guys enough for that. I mean, it keeps the lights on, keeps things moving.
Continue the clicking.
Yes. We've done some changes to the webpage. I mean, you now see Jason Sadidas' quick lick. Mm-hmm. And good luck playing it.
Yeah.
Jason is an exceptional musician, and he just makes it look so effortlessly. I just don't know how. I look at it and go,
Yeah, I don't know how the brain thinks that way.
His left and right are going crazy.
Before if I started trying to think outside the box, before I ever reached licks and runs the way he does, I'd be convinced I was playing all the wrong notes, and I couldn't get to that point because no, this has to be wrong, and I'd go back to a standard pentatonic or variation thereof.
Exactly. So we have some questions, and do you want to do the questions now, or do you have?
I had a couple of things that I found
okay,
surprising.
Oh.
Let's put it at surprising. Okay. Well, first we'll go back to the carbon thing for a second. You said they brought back the X100. You know who just brought back something at NAMM? Well, everybody's bringing back stuff all the time now because,
of course,
they
see what Gibson and Fender do, and they go, "We got to bring it back."
Yeah. and this is Marshall, and Marshall's been doing this for quite a long time. They started to bring back all the hand wired stuff, the offset chassis, the hand wired 1959s, the Hendrix thing, the original 100 watt with 2 output transformers,
the Randy Rhoads thing. They had a Randy Rhoads model that they did, and
and
Lemmy. They have Lemmy's own signature.
Yeah, they have. Well, there's that. We won't go into the signature models, but
yes, that's true.
They brought back this year the Silver Jubilee.
Whoa.
The 2555,
yes.
I believe.
The 2550 and 2555.
Yeah.
I think that was the numbers, yeah.
Yeah, and it's so funny because I can remember
guys would
when they way before that, when they first came out.
Yeah.
It was different than a Marshall. It really was a different kind of beast. And when they first came out,
couldn't move them.
Yeah. You couldn't give those things away.
Exactly.
Then Slash came along.
Yep.
Did the first GNR album,
and that's all it took.
And literally, that's all it took.
And those things were going for a ton, of money.
And then you get people like, later on, that was a mainstay in Joe B's rig for a long time. A pair of those in his rig for a long time. I'm trying to think who else used these things too. But it was all Slash. He, and it was probably the Marshall that he could afford because all those guys were, eking by on 10 cents a day, and it's like, oh, well, this is a Marshall, I can't afford the quote unquote real one. I'll get this. And I bet you that's how that happened.
Little Slash trivia that a lot of people don't know. That first Les Paul that he used in those videos was not a real
Les Paul.
It was made by a guy.
Yep.
Yeah. And he played an Epiphone for a while. Mm-hmm. They were dirt poor.
Right.
They had no money.
Right.
So, yeah, that makes sense. You guys were probably throwing Jubilees away at that time. And he probably said, well, it's a Marshall. I'll make it work. And I tell you what, I played with a guy that had one. That was one of the best sounding amps I've ever heard. It really was.
The first time I plugged into one, I thought the same thing as everybody else. This where did the real Marshall go? This is not an 800 anymore. No. It's not.
It's gamey.
And it had a whole different characteristic to it.
Yes.
They're inside there and they're chopping the signal with diode bridges and LEDs and everything else, and it just wasn't what a purist would call a pure tube signal path anymore, and that's what made them sound different. And it
must have worked.
It took a while to catch on, and and then it's like people are listening to the first Guns N' Roses going, what kind of sound is that? It sounds like a Marshall, but I'm not sure what that is. And,
I heard he was buying them up like crazy.
I'm sure after a while.
And then they came out with the Slash signature model, which was basically
it was the
Jubilee with his stuff on it.
Right, it was a Jubilee with his signature and in black.
Yeah,
Yep. But the silver one is back this year.
That is so funny.
The silver one is back with an A and a B cabinet.
We're gonna bring back an anniversary amp because that's what it was.
It was.
It was a silver anniversary amp. That's pretty good.
God bless. Whatever works.
Well, at least it's not made out of paper.
And I guarantee you they're sold out already.
Oh, I'm sure.
I'm sure there was a limited run. I guarantee.
Do you remember the little 1 watts?
Yes.
That 1 watt series they had. They had the what was it? The 45 clone, the one that looked like that was like designed after the 45.
Right.
Then they had one that was like after the 59. Then they had the JCM 800, the 900, the 2000. And then, I don't know, was there anything after that? I think that was it, right? It was these little 1 watt heads. They sounded awesome. And they only made a handful of them.
Yeah, they made some of those. And I also remember back in the 80s, it was Bradshaw that was using the little solid state 12 watt heads on top of the refrigerator racks full of gear. That would be the amp, and then they would take the output of that and just process it to death through this whole refrigerator rack full of stuff. But it was the little 12-watt Marshall head. They used to come on 2 little mini bottoms.
Yeah, I've
with
seen
like
that thing.
110 in each bottom.
Yep. The micro cabs or micro stack.
Something like that. It was actually a pretty cool thing, you know. But
crazy.
again, was it a real Marshall? No, but they built a whole sound around that too, you know.
That is hilarious, man.
So, a couple things that I noticed.
Yeah.
Most recently, and this, I'm happy to see this. I'm also, I'm not totally convinced that it is what it appears to be on the surface. I'm a little skeptical.
Okay.
But I'm getting some respect back for the Reverend B.F. Gibbons. Reverend Billy. He's supposedly playing the new Magnatone Super 59 heads now.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know what? I saw an ad for those things, and that was on stage. That showed.
Right.
That's
I've
an
seen
ad.
that.
Yep, I saw that.
And supposedly he's and they're tube amps. They're all tube amps with a vibrato, with the Magnatone kind of vibrato, but. It's no Magnatone of the past because it has a pair of EL34s, and calling it the Super 59. I'm thinking it's probably modeled after a 1959 Marshall kind of thing.
So here's my take on it, because I've seen enough of his guitar rig rundowns and everything. Probably in the studio, maybe. I'm thinking they may have him on stage for when he needs to do a sustained note, because remember he uses the Axe effects. Or that of and then when he needs a sustained note, they go to a real amp. I don't know why.
If you're going to carry the real amp anyway, and you really need it for natural sustain, why would you just not play the damn amp anyway? Okay, I'm a little skeptical about this because A, he could have the Axe effects running into this.
It could be a number of things with him.
And B, I don't know, what's his association with the Magnatone company? Not quite sure.
Think there might be a hand in there?
Well, he could own a crap load of it. I mean, look at
Carlos Santana?
Brad Paisley.
Oh.
Dr. Z.
That's true.
Yeah.
He
does play him, but he's got a reason to play him, Billy might have a reason to play Magnatone. I'm just saying. Time will tell.
Well, it's like Brad Whitford, Three Monkeys.
Yes,
he's heavily into that.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So I mean,
so I was surprised at that. Happy to see it though, and if it's real, I'm even happier to see it.
Billy Gibbons is one of those guys that I think the thing is that they're smart, and what I mean by that is they were able to, at a time when things were getting really sterile and really ugly in the mid '80s. Mm-hmm. And they came out with the, what was it, Penetrator album or whatever was that album with
Sharp Dress Man, legs,
yeah. And literally a drum machine was the backing drums. He is not, and I don't think those guys are afraid to embrace technology. To obviously it worked for them. It helped them get along. Now, his guitars being hollow and chambered necks and everything, he's not a young guy. Mm-hmm. You know what it's like. I mean, Les Pauls are heavy. They are if you get like your RO or any of the reissue series that are solid, and they got some girth. Mm-hmm. They got some pounds to them. A custom is a heavy guitar. Mm-hmm. Being at that age, he doesn't have to do that. It's like the Seven thing. It's like the guy doesn't have to. He doesn't have to. He's paid his dues, I guess. Type thing.
It's probably why Keith Richards plays Tellys.
Exactly.
Most of them are not heavy guitars.
And if you saw back in
especially the good old ones,
back in the 70s, he played Les Pauls. I mean, there's pictures of Keith Richards with Les Pauls. So.
Sure, Les Paul's
Les Paul, great guitar, weighs 8 times.
SGs, you know.
Yeah, now SG. That's
yeah.
my avenue. Cause
right, there
I
you
tell
go.
you what, I love the Les Paul, but man, that SG is just like, well, my back, the spine can actually grow upward now.
That's right. I'm getting taller again.
Exactly.
All right, so just one more thing. We'll get into questions real quick.
Go ahead.
But there, you know, as surprised as I am to see Mr. Gibbons coming back to Tubedom, and welcome back.
Yes.
I was much more surprised to see this person delving into the solid state world. And I got to tell you, from what I heard, it's either really convincing or the player's sound is truly 99% in their fingers.
Okay.
I'm not quite sure.
Who is it?
Mr. Eric Johnson is playing Roland.
Well, that's just crazy.
Roland Blues Cube Tone Capsule amps. And there's this little capsule that goes in, plugs into the back of the amp. You get your tube feel from it, quote unquote. You know, and they have a LED in there that lights up, you know, because it's you want to get the tube light up kind of feel. It's supposed to be like similar to modeling, but done in a different way.
Okay.
Mick, I got to tell you what I heard. Honestly, I couldn't believe.
Really?
Yeah, it was. You know, again, and they weren't being this thing next to his twin for clean and next to one of his Marshalls for. But they took his favorite Marshall and his favorite twin and did some work in trying to get this right. And I was floored when I saw Eric Johnson playing a solid state amp.
Wow.
It's a solid state crane amp. So you're talking about like the Japanese being innovative and coming up.
Yeah.
You know what? I got to hear it myself. I really just have to hear it myself.
Well, it's funny that you say that because our buddy Frank Picha, he texted me today, and he's out at NAMM. So he's going to get us some photos. He's going to get us some vid clips. We're going to put them up on the website.
Cool.
Probably won't. If he sends them to me tonight, because we are recording this Friday, he'll be out tomorrow. You know, maybe we'll have them that fresh. But he said, I just bumped into Nicky Morock. He's playing. He is playing his Indigo amplification model, and he says unfrickin' believable. Now I don't know about this. Do you know about this Indigo
no
amplification model? I don't know.
He must have been working on an amp with Indigo. Indigo is just another boutique.
Is that what that is?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Well, then I'm sorry. It wasn't anything. I thought he was modeling. I thought it was a model thing.
Oh no, it's probably the Nicky Morock Indigo model.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you know, I mean, it's Nicky.
True.
I said, you know, doesn't get much better than Nicky. You know.
We're going to have one of his students on soon. I'm not going to say who, but the fantastic player. Just blew me away the first time I saw them play in an amp show.
Yeah.
And Nicky went, "It's my student." Damn.
Nicky,
but anyway, Eric Johnson playing solid state. The world is on its ear.
Yes,
at this
it
point,
is.
You know.
Next thing you know, we'll have a Jackson in his hands.
All right, let's not go too
well,
far.
there you
Let's
go.
not go too far.
Not to put down the guys at Jackson.
Maybe we can get a quick video of
yes.
Of
I told
EJ.
I told him. I said, you know, definitely.
He might be out there demoing. I don't see why not.
Yeah. So,
look. We know everybody's out there demoing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Nicky Morock, and you're listening to Amps and Axes.
So I guess we want to do some questions.
Okay, let's get to some questions.
Okay. So the first question was a fellow that reached out through Facebook to us. His name is Todd Stringer.
Okay.
And he said he bought a PRS, and it's a McCarty, and it's a semi-hollow body, and it has some problems that I would think PRS quality control would have noticed. And he says the tuning keys are not lining up, and etc. He doesn't really go into too much detail.
Yeah, I remember that email.
Yeah.
You know, some issues. Let's not say problems, but
there's
some issues that one would think that you know, someone of PRS
would not let slide.
quality control standards.
Yeah.
Might not let go. So
they have, I think, 2 women that do the final inspection on all the guitars. There's a reason that women do a final inspection, not men, because women have a higher attention to detail.
True.
If you go to the U.S. Mint, the only people that are inspecting the sheets of money are women, not men. Believe it or not, at the end.
I totally believe it.
So they
totally
have a eagle eye.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've seen these women go through these guitars, and they are looking for everything. So, yeah, it would make me wonder. Now, here's the thing. I know a couple things about PRSs and what to look for to see if your PRS is actually a real PRS.
Really?
Because our friends over in China, there are some companies that literally will sell you a guitar that 20 feet away you would think, well, that's a Les Paul custom. Peter Green model, and down to the case, down to all the badging, everything looks authentic.
I have seen
$400.
I have seen Frampton models.
Yes, any model
with custom shop certificates
all over the place. Yes.
Everything.
They go to painstaking measures
Yeah.
to try to make it look like it's the real deal, and it is completely fake. So here's the thing. When you have your PRS, anything that was made after, and I want to say 1995, when they moved to the Stevensville, not Stevensonville, because I screwed it up one time and I got corrected, the Stevensville factory.
Okay.
Under your treble pickup, your bridge pickup, if you pull it out, there should be a barcode underneath that pickup that should be clear coded right to the guitar, right in the cavity.
So you think they were using barcodes even back then? In
I think so.
96.
I think once the factory went automated, they put that tag with that guitar, and it stays with that guitar to tell it what it's going to be. It's going to be a hollow body McCartney with blah, 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 right? McCarty. Sorry, did I say McCartney?
You said McCartney.
Oh, well, that would be a violin-looking bass. But
Sir,
anyway.
Sir Paul on the brain.
Yes. So that would be a telltale sign. You could look under that treble pickup. It should be clear-coated in there, so you can't pull it off if you got the guitar. The other thing is, flip the pickups upside down. PRS pickups have their own insignia on them, and they have some handwriting on them that tell you what kind of pickup it is. And there's a little tag on there, too. Now, you could take that tag off. But most people aren't going to go through all that painstaking to pull a pickup out and then pull the tag off and then put the pickup back in. They usually keep that kind of stuff. I mean, I do. Just to know what I got laying around, so I'm not going, what the hell did this come out of?
Right.
So
we've all got some of those laying around.
Yes. So that those two things right there, you can do that with one fell swoop, right? You pull the treble pickup out, you look at the bottom of the pickup, see what it says, and then look in the cavity. Yeah, exactly. Next, now it is a hollow body, so it's going to be a little bit tough, but he could take a dental mirror. You can go get one of those at an automotive place.
You could probably get them at like Harbor Freight Tools.
Exactly.
Anything.
Like couple bucks.
Right.
Just take it and look at the pots. The pots inside the control cavity are CTS. That's what Paul uses. They're special made for him. Okay, but they are CTS pots. CTS pots are very high-end pots. They're good pots. They get you see them on high-end guitars. You don't see them.
Now he's assuming that this is a U.S. McCarty. Right.
I don't think they make a hollow.
That's what I'm saying.
body.
Do they?
No.
I don't think the SEs or anything.
I don't think they have any kind of McCarty model.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So take a look at them. If they're real tiny, they're metric. They're from Europe. They're not
right.
They're not standard, CTS pots. The other thing about Paul's pots is that they're fast. He calls them speed knobs or whatever. Well, that's because they used back in the day, not now, but they have their own new version now. But back in the day, the knobs were the old speed knobs. But those pots are so loose that you can flick it and it'll go from And Paul has always no effort whatsoever in PRS pots. It should be very easy. When you see some of these smaller pots, they put a lot of, I guess, dielectric grease in there or something.
Yeah, the damping.
Yeah, and it slows it down. It's like it's like mud. It's like
and people kind of expect that feel on the front of an amp. They're
Yes.
like, oh, this is a quality pot.
Yeah,
because it's tight.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But on the guitar, it should be a little. On his guitars, it should be looser. Mm-hmm. The other thing too. Now,
and you're saying full size pots. In case people don't know, a full size pot is about the size. It's between like a nickel and a quarter.
Yeah.
And the smaller ones are about the size of a dime.
Exactly.
So you could, that's kind of easily discernible if you take a look.
Yes. The other things, I mean, they don't silk screen the name on a PRS. It's actually raised. I've actually seen that raised lettering fall off.
You mean on the headstock?
On the headstock, yes. On the back of the headstock, they usually write with a grease pen of some sort the serial number on the back of the headstock with the date at the end. I think the N2 numbers is the date, the year, if I'm not mistaken. You can look it up online.
I forgot, yeah.
But I know that the lettering on the front is raised. Mm-hmm. It's actually like a.
The back to me looks like a paint pen.
Yeah, like a paint pen. Yeah. Just look at the truss rod cavity. Truss rod cavities on European or on Korean or Asian guitars, Chinese, usually very big, very sloppy, just not good work.
Dirty.
And PRS truss rod cavities are as pristine as you've ever seen in your life. It's like you could take the truss rod cover off and it doesn't look bad. Mm-hmm. My PRS was that way. It just didn't look bad. They use generally they don't use white nuts. They use the black. It's probably from Dave Dunwoody out there at Graph Tech. It's probably a version of theirs that they put on. And if it is a wraparound bridge, you can check the posts. The bridge itself should be probably an aircraft aluminum that was machined all in one piece. Unless it's adjustable. There's a different version. They have an adjustable version. Their non-adjustable version is usually just a piece of aluminum now. It all depends on the year.
Now.
Yeah, they used to be brass.
They used to be chrome-plated brass.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
I know the guys that did that chrome, and they were meticulous about it. And a lot of those got rejected.
Yeah. It's very hard to do that too.
It's very hard to do really good chrome, I know the guys that did those back in the days, and they're painstakingly done.
Well, depending upon the year, but for most part, the studs will still be chrome plated brass. Mine it had the very lightweight aircraft aluminum single. I mean, it wasn't a cast; it was actually milled. Mm-hmm. You could see the mill marks on the bottom of it because they don't polish that side, right? But the studs were actually brass because I scraped it off. I scraped the chrome off, and I was like, wow, that's brass. It was very impressive that, because, it's a heavier metal and it transfers better, that way. So there's a number of things that you can look for on that. And I just say if they got the code, if that code is underneath that pickup, just call PRS. Give them that code. They'll tell you. Mm-hmm. Those guys don't hold back. Paul goes to great lengths to make sure that the fake stuff is not out there.
Right.
He tries to. I mean, it's impossible, but he has guys that scour the internet, man. He tries to buy up that crap and everything.
Wow.
Because, think about it. Gibson has just been abused to no end, and so has Fender. Everybody has.
Yeah.
The Chinese, they don't care when it comes to that kind of. There's some of them
scruples.
It's really funny because there's some of those business guys that work with Kevin Brubaker and a couple of the other companies. They are making high quality instruments.
I was just talking to somebody else today about the same thing. It's like there are places, and it's wrong to diss the entire.
I won't say the country.
It's wrong to diss the entire country, right? But and I mean there are places you don't want stuff made, you don't want to be associated with, but there are also places where people from here go in and they set it up. They set it up the right way,
and then they're making it on the back.
Not necessarily,
I know what you
but
mean.
they're set up the right way, and they treat their employees right, and the product is done the right way, and It can be done.
Uh-huh.
If you just go there and throw it at the first person that throws the lowest price, bids you the lowest price, it's probably not where you want to have anything of quality made at all.
Well, you hear the nightmares that you go in, you have a great idea, you have this thing, but you need manufacturing. So you go to China because it's cheap, and you take your idea over there, and then 6 months later, you're like, I haven't received any product, but my product is on the shelf at Kmart for 50 cents on the dollar, and you're like, what? And what do you do?
Yeah, it's happened.
Try to sue somebody that's in another country.
Yeah, it's not. That's the whole problem. That's not enforceable. That's why they get away with it. But there are very upfront and honest business people there that are doing a good job for people like that and others that we know that are having stuff made there. So
So Todd,
it's possible.
Go through your guitar with a fine tooth comb. There'll be a couple shortcomings, and you'll know if it's real or not. And then if you find the sticker, call PRS. They'll tell you if it's what year it was made, all that good stuff.
Yeah, let us know if that helped.
Yeah, man.
Or let us know what you found, and if you think it's real or not, and
throw some pictures at us.
Right, throw some pictures. Let us know about the guitar, how you like it, or you hate it, or
exactly
whatever. We'd love to hear from you again.
Hey, this is Peter Stroud with Sheryl Crow. You are listening to my good buddies Jeff and Mick on Amps and Axes.
And we're back.
Are we back?
Yes, we're back.
Wow. That was quick.
I know.
Jesus, it's like we never left.
You wouldn't believe the time that has been from then to now. Anyway.
Yes, I would, because I was part of that time.
Yes.
Unless there was a time shift in the
we have a
shift in the time continuum.
We have a question for you.
Okay, good. I love questions for me.
I find the consensus is that when I get asked a question, nobody really cares. When Jeff gets asked a question...
Oh, no, that last one was totally interesting to me because I didn't know half that stuff. So
I know, but I always bust balls because it's like... It's always like, so how's Jeff doing? Yeah, I'm doing great. I'm doing real good. Real good to see you. We're going to have my buddy Omar on here, and we're going to talk about the thing that happened at this show that they did.
The thing at the place?
The thing at the place.
Awesome.
It was the Bay Day or Bay
Island Bay Day.
Island Bay Day.
There we go.
And
see, sometimes it takes two brains.
What is the name of that band that he's in?
Sweet Lita.
Sweet Lita.
Yes.
Omar, Omar's right around the corner, correct?
No, Omar's an Eastern Shore kind of guy.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll have to have Omar make his way across the bridge and come sit with us one night.
Yeah, he's on this side of the bridge for rehearsals.
Yes, and we will sit down and talk about our experiences of being in bands with guys who had, let's just say, a little bit more of the spotlight, and how people backhand the living hell out of you. But that'll be another show.
That's totally another show.
Yes. So
that might be a whole nother program.
The question.
All right, give me my damn question.
Here comes the question.
All right.
It's from Anthony Fabic.
Awesome.
How you doing, Anthony?
What's up, Anthony?
Or is it Tony? See, that's the question. It says,
Anthony.
I got a question. Attenuators.
Attenuate.
First part of that question is, are they harmful to an amp?
Are they harmful to an amp?
If so, how? It's a two-part question.
Gee, that means I don't get to answer the second half because the first half of the question
is going to answer the second.
The answer is no.
Well, there you go.
Any more questions? No. No, they're not. And let me explain why. Everybody, I mean, for decades, everybody's been thinking, "Oh, you can't run an attenuator on your amp. It kills the amp. They just go bad if you run attenuators on them."
Now, I guess maybe we ought to explain what an attenuator is.
Okay, all right. I'll start from the basics. An attenuator is used when you have an amp that's really too loud for the venue that you would like to play said amp in. You could have a 100-watt Marshall, and we all know 100-watt Marshalls, especially back in the day, the non-masters.
They hurt.
But they hurt so good.
Yeah.
But they they sound the best when they're almost opened up, like set to around 7 or 8.
Yeah.
They breathe. They're very responsive to the guitar. They're very responsive to pick attack.
Mm-hmm.
But they're too damn loud to play anywhere.
Very loud.
I mean, back in the day before masters, you and of course, if you go way back before they really had decent front of house systems, you needed 3 or 4 stacks on the stage of an arena.
You wouldn't be heard.
You wouldn't be heard, right? And the sound systems were basically for vocals, and depending on the size of the arena, you needed that 4th double stack 100-watt Marshall to cut through. Anyway, so move up to everybody still likes the sound of just say even a single 412 and a 100-watt Marshall top, okay,
Sure.
or a 100-watt whatever that doesn't have a master on it, or even in some cases it has a master because
It
sometimes
sounds good when they're loud.
Right, they sound good when they're loud, but it's too loud for a venue. So an attenuator, long story short, way too long story. An attenuator is something that gets placed between the amp head and the cabinet, and it does what it says it does. It attenuates the signal. It
creates more load, right? No.
See, and that's
where I'm wrong.
Right, that's where it would be wrong. It simply sends less of the signal being produced by the amp to the speaker.
That's why they catch fire.
Well, they can, but not really.
Marshall
anymore.
was good at making good ones. They would burn. Like, hey, there's a flame coming out of your attenuator.
Attenuator?
Yeah.
Really? I've never seen an attenuator light on fire. I
heard the Marshall power break. They would every now and then.
And that's crazy because the power break really, in all honesty, had the concept the most correct.
Really?
Yes, because the Marshall power break was actually done with taps on a transformer inside that amp. So the amplifier output was actually seeing a reactive load like a speaker would be. A speaker is a moving coil, and the impedance changes all the time. The resistance, and not so much the DC resistance, but the capacitance and the inductance, which is impedance, changes all the time depending on how much power it's seeing, how much the cone is excurring, and things like that. It's live. It's active. It's not passive. So putting a transformer, which is a bunch of coils, inside the load made the proper. It made a proper load, quote unquote, for the amplifier to see. It thought it was seeing a speaker, as opposed to most attenuators out there now, and we can go all the way back to the basic ones, which were nothing but DC resistance, and most things that are made nowadays are still DC resistance, more or less. Everybody thought that, that's not right because a speaker is more than a resistor, so it's not going to sound right, and you can't use resistors. And everybody that uses DC resistance only, it's going to be a piece of crap. And that whole thing, from what I can see, has come full circle because most everything now, again, is DC resistor based.
That's so funny.
And they work just fine. Are they perfect? No. But they work really well.
Yeah.
And no, they, in and of themselves, don't do damage to the amp. And here's where the misconception is. This is what the misconception is based in. You put an attenuator on your amp. You turn it up, and the attenuator is padding down most of the signal. It's only sending some to the speaker. But the output stage of the amp blows up when you do that. Maybe. But if you removed said attenuator and played that amp on 10 the way you were playing it into the attenuator,
do the same thing.
It would have blown up anyway. Okay, I mean, tubes wear out, and when you push them hard, they are more prone to fail. So if you're playing your amp at a lower volume, you're not really pushing the tube that hard.
Yeah.
Once the attenuator comes into place, now you can push those output tubes really hard and get it to sound like it's really cooking at a much lower audible level, but you're pushing those tubes. When you push the tubes, that's what causes the amp to fail, because the tube failed. The tube at that level would have more than likely failed with or without the attenuator. But people put, I put the attenuator on and now the amp blew up. The attenuator didn't cause the amp to blow up. Your settings caused the amp to blow up. And that's what gave attenuators for the longest time a bad rap, because people didn't put those two and two together. There was, the attenuator must have caused it. It doesn't. It's no different. It's virtually no different than playing the amp very, very loud. And if your amp was going to blow up with the attenuator, if you're playing it with a high setting, it was probably going to go anyway. And 9 times out of 10, it's simply tube related, because the tubes were being pushed hard and they were just ready to go.
Okay.
That's why the statement, no, attenuators are not bad for amps. It's the settings that you want to play the amp at that causes the failure.
Well, I will tell you this: never seen an attenuator. Jeez, an attenuator catch fire. I've only read about it. I've heard about it. Like, hey, it's cooking. And on second note, I know that tubes. Tubes are funny little things, man.
Yeah,
it's like, hey, that sounds really. Oh, now it's not working. Because it's it sounds bad, and now it doesn't. Now it doesn't sound like anything.
Look, it's like any electronic device. It could be working 1 second, and not working the next.
And you're exactly right when you say the next second.
Yeah,
yeah. Things are funny.
a lot of things don't take a long time to die.
No, they don't. They don't give you. It didn't like. Man, is that tire going flat? Nope, it's flat.
It is flat, right?
Yeah. Okay, he says
people ask me how long tubes are supposed to last too.
Uh-huh.
And again, it's
is that what you say? Uh-huh. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah.
It's
how hard
how long and how loud.
Yeah, how hard do you push them, man?
And honestly, nowadays most tubes do not last the way vintage tubes used to last. There is just something different with the material, something different with the process. And they just do not have the life expectancy.
Thicker glass.
It's
all kinds of stuff.
It's the metallurgy and everything. My general statement decades ago was 30 seconds to 30 years. And anywhere in between is fair game.
Well, there you go.
Nowadays I have to edit that, because you're not getting 30 years out of any currently made tube.
30 seconds to 3 years.
But if you got a couple of good years out of your tubes, you'd probably notice an improvement if you change them. If you play regularly with big bottles, if you get a couple of years out of them, that's probably doing good.
Yeah.
EL 84s or 6V6s, you're probably going to notice an improvement between 6 and 12 months if you change them.
That's cool.
But if you're playing with attenuators, A, change them sooner, and B, carry an extra set.
Wow. Now, there's more. On the same question.
Okay.
What alternatives to attenuators are there for controlling volume, yet harnessing output distortion?
None.
Okay.
There are a couple little cheats you can do. Bottom line is, if you want output tube distortion, you got to push the tubes hard. If you're going to push the tubes hard, they're going to generate all this power. It's got to go somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay. There's a little trick you can do that's it's kind of almost like an attenuator, but it's not as expensive or elaborate as an attenuator, nor is it adjustable. Okay. But you can remove 50% of your power.
2 tubes.
You can do that too.
But doesn't that change the tone?
Look, everything changes tone. Attenuators change tone. Everything changes the tone.
That is
how
true.
much it changes the tone is subjective.
Yeah.
And is it good enough for you to deal with? I mean, if you're looking for perfection, if you're looking to change something yet have the same amount of perfection that you had a moment ago, or you think you had a moment ago, it's not going to be the same.
No,
it's not. Everything changes when you change something. Okay, to what degree is relative, but everything changes.
Now, I shit on your point, so say the piece you were going to say.
You can simply add, if your amp has an external speaker output and it has an adjustable impedance.
Okay.
Say like your amp is set at 16 ohms and you're running a 16 ohm cabinet.
Mm-hmm.
You can get a high powered 16 ohm resistor,
mm-hmm.
and attach 2 wires to it. Whether you want to mount it in a box and put a nice jack on it, or attach 2 wires to it and put it somewhere where it's not going to melt anything. You can plug that into your extension speaker jack. And if you have a 16 ohm cabinet, get a 16 ohm, like 100, 150, 200 watt resistor. Plug that into your extension speaker jack. Set the impedance to 8 ohms. And now half of your power is going to the speaker. The other half of the power is going to the dummy load.
Mm.
Okay? So the amp is still seeing a really true reactive load from the speaker.
But half of it.
But half of it is being dissipated across this resistor that's not making any noise. Now, yeah, it will get hot. Don't put it on top of your amp if you like the vinyl. Don't do that. It's, mount it somewhere, put it in a box somewhere, If you have it out in the open, make sure it's something that says hot, next to it. Because, you could get burned depending on how loud you're playing. But that's a quick and dirty attenuator, basically. And it dissipates half your power. Now, know that half your power is not half volume.
Yeah, I learned that.
It is not. A 50 watt Marshall is not half as loud as a 100 watt Marshall.
Nope.
Yeah, a 10 watt Marshall is half as loud as a 100 watt Marshall,
Uh-huh.
But so that will help, and it really does help. It really does help. The other thing, like you were saying, is pull 2 tubes. And I've some of this stuff I've gone through in my Premier Guitar articles over the year, and all attenuators and tubes and all of that. So pull up some Premier Guitar articles if you're curious too. But tubes, generally in a 4-tube amp, you can't do it in a 2-tube amp.
No.
Only a 4-tube. And you take one from the left pair, one from the right pair. I don't care if it's a 2 outside ones, 2 inside ones, number 1 and number 3, number 2 and number 4, whatever. You can pull those out. In most cases, it's okay. I don't recommend it in like the Buddha amps that I designed or the East amps that I make now, without changing the rectifier tube to lower the remaining B+ voltage, because the voltage goes up when you reduce the load, and you reduce the load when you pull 2 tubes out. And in my amps, the voltage gets a little too high for just the 2 remaining tubes if they're like EL84s or something. So this is a thing you can do in some amps, but you really have to be careful in doing it. I would, anytime you do that, I would ask the manufacturer, especially in a boutique kind of amp, if you want to do it, I would ask the manufacturer if it's safe, and I tell guys how to do it safely. But the other thing that you should remember, in order to do that in a perfect world, you need to reduce the impedance setting by half. Can't do that in Fender amps, in Fender combo amps, because it's a set impedance.
Yeah.
And that's a whole other thing about extension speakers. They really don't belong there, et cetera, et cetera. But if you pull 2 tubes, you now change the load on the primary of the power of the output transformer. Yet the secondary load, the load on the secondary, which is the speaker, remains the same. So you need to adjust that, and the way you adjust that is by dropping the impedance setting by 50% on the amp. So if you're able to pull 2 tubes and you're running a 16 ohm cabinet, set the amp at 8. If you're running an 8 ohm cabinet, set the amp at 4. And that way your output transformer remains more matched to the 2 tubes instead of 4, and to the speaker. So I know that's a lot of technical
That's okay.
BS for
we can do that
to take in.
Now you ready? There's one last piece of this.
Okay.
It says, are there any attenuators you recommend, assuming they are not harmful?
Yeah. I mean, everybody says something about every attenuator out there and how it's not perfect and it changes the sound some. And all I have to say to that is yes. But you know what? It's not going to be perfect. It's simply not. And honestly, I have never found a situation where I used an attenuator and I couldn't make it work for me. You know, if you set your amp perfectly or whatever perfect is for you, and then you plug in an attenuator and you say it's not the same. Well, no, it's not the same. And there's a couple of reasons.
You may have to tweak.
One is because there's a slightly different load on the amp right now. Yeah. Another reason is because your speaker is not moving the same way, and that in itself makes a difference in what you hear. So nothing is going to be the same once you insert that component in there. Mm-hmm. But what's the problem with turning a couple of knobs on the front of the amp to try to get it closer to where it was? And I'm telling you, it's not. Most of these are not big differences.
Yeah.
You know, if you expect to plug this in and everything to sound exactly the same, you know, you're in fantasy land. And why do you want to live there? Tweak a couple of knobs, make it work for you. It's really not rocket science, and it doesn't, you know, I don't think anybody has to be anal about this stuff, man. You're trying to make this gear work in the best it can in the situation for you. And the best you can hope for is the best you can.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
And be happy with it and just do it. But anyway, do I recommend any?
Yes.
I've always had pretty good luck with the THD hot plate. Some people don't like them a lot. I like them. I think they do a very good job at what they do.
And they have a variety of flavors.
They do. They come in all sorts of colors. They come in 16 ohm, 8 ohm, 4 ohm, and 3.2 ohm. No, they come in 8. Do they come in 16? They come in 8.
I think they come in 16, don't they?
Maybe they do. Yeah, they might do 5. 16, 8, 4, 2, and 3.2 ohm. And that's a really bizarre one. That's what you find in like 310 Bandmasters.
Really?
Yeah. It's 3.2 ohms. And they actually took the time to make a 3.2 ohm attenuator. Now, the thing with the THD hot plates is it's a dedicated attenuator. You can't change impedance on it.
No.
So that, you know, but if you know the rig you're going to use it with most of the time, that's fine. Some other attenuators do have settings where you can set it for like 16 or 8. I'm not quite sure how far a lot of these go, but you can at least have a couple of different settings.
Okay, so here we go. I went on their website.
Okay.
So because it's here we go. Hold on, no, bear with me. So they got. Why is it doing this to me? This is what the internet...
I know the 8 ohm one is purple because we used to use that in the Buddha booth all the time.
So the blue one is 16.
Purple is 8.
The purple is 8. The gold one is 2. Mm-hmm. They got a green one. It's 2.7 ohms.
Oh, it's 2, not 3.2. It's 2.7.
Yes. Right. Okay. And hold on.
And there should be a 4, I think.
I'm looking. I don't see a 4th.
Maybe not.
Why did they do this? They really... Okay. Yeah. Here we go. They got 5. They got the 16, the 8, the 4, the 2.7, and the 2.
And the 2. And
so it's
2 is super reverb. That's a 2 ohm load.
Oh, okay. So you got the blue 16, the purple 8, the red 4, the green 2.7, and the gold or yellow 2 ohms.
2 ohms. Well, there you go.
There you go.
There's the whole line.
And
so
and I'll give you the price. They're all about $350.
There you go.
So
I've always had good luck with those. I think Andy Marshall was one of the guys that came out with a really good attenuator early on. Mm-hmm. Like I said, the Marshall Power Break, it's a completely different beast, and you know, I really haven't had the occasion to use it, although I do know theoretically that was probably the most proper one.
Yeah.
You know, there's Weber's got a couple of them out there now, you know, and there's
some that are very expensive.
Well, yeah, I mean, and the Weber is kind of derivative of the Trainwreck air brake, and everybody went, oh, you know, Ken Fisher Trainwreck air. It's a big resistor. you know, and it really it's you know the mystery on some of these things is kind of staggering and surprising. You know, I used a variable resistor on my Ampeg V4, a big 150 watt variable resistor on my Ampeg V4 back in the 70s. All right, it's really not rocket science, people. But there's the Weber stuff out there. They actually have, well, the Weber Mass is actually cool, and I've not used this one, but the Weber Mass, the real one, is actually a speaker motor.
Really?
In a box. It's the magnet, it's the coil, it's everything. It's the motor in a box without the cone. So it doesn't make speaker noise, but it reacts just like a speaker.
That's wild.
It's pretty cool. But they also do the ones now that are variable, and it's nothing but a big variable resistor. And those are the ones like you mount in the back of the amps.
There's one other piece.
Oh, I know which piece you're talking about. It is my favorite piece, if you're talking about an expensive one.
I'm talking about an inexpensive one, actually.
Oh, inexpensive?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, it doesn't, okay, so it lowers, no, it doesn't, I don't know if it lowers the volume, Jeff, but I do know that you can divert the volume with the plexiglass fronts. I saw our good buddy Todd Miller the other night play. He has a Splawn, which is a very loud amp. It's a 100 watter, and he had a little 212 cabinet, and he took the plexiglass, put it in front of it, and he just had two triangles of space coming out because it was an accordion.
Yes.
So it went out, and then it came back in to the center. So the two speakers were kind of sitting in these two triangles.
Yeah.
And was not abrasive at all, and sounded insane. Sounded great.
Yeah, no, I really do like that.
Yeah, sound was going upward.
Right.
And the more you can deflect it, it becomes less.
Right.
I mean, it just starts dissipating to no end. So that's an alternative without losing your quote-unquote tone.
And that's the one that probably...
Cheap.
Well, probably cheaper than an attenuator. Those plexiglass shields aren't dirt cheap, but they're definitely cheaper than a $350 attenuator.
Yes.
For sure.
And what's the other one? Isolation cabinet? Is that what you were going to say?
No, because that's not a real... You can't really use that in a real-life situation unless you have something else that you're going to bring the sound back with. You know, you got to mic the cab has to have an internal mic, and then you have to come back through some sound system, and that's a whole nother ballpark. That's a whole nother ballpark. But I was just speaking of another attenuator that I really like. That I think, and like I said, the hot plates work great, and they do have a deep and a bright switch, so you can actually
there was some stuff on there.
Yeah, you can change the tone of it, and it's fine. My favorite out there is the Tube Amp Doctor silencer. It's made in Germany.
I like that.
It's made in Germany. It's probably the best sounding unit.
Okay.
But that thing's got to be probably close to $600, So it's not a cheap toy.
It's healthy.
Yeah, it's an investment, but I think it's the best sounding one out there. But like you were saying, the ISO cabs, that's a whole nother thing. That's if you need to take that sound and then just start reprocessing it again. You got to dump all the sound somewhere and then come back out with a mic. And that, or everybody that wants to do something like that is dumping the amps into like Palmer speaker simulators in their racks, and then they're taking signals out from there, whether it's to front of house or whether it's to processing.
Because if you're doing a small gig, you don't really want to isolate the speaker because you're not going to have much of a PA anyhow, and you're really probably not going to be able to put it through that PA.
Right.
You know what I did? I took and I got a really... so I have a 212 cabinet, but I have a 112 cabinet. Okay. And 112 has a 50-watt speaker, and the head I have is a 50-watt head. And I tell you what, you take your amp and you take away a speaker, and my God, it's like, it's not as loud.
Oh, totally.
And you're like, man, that's a big difference, And it really does. You can crank it a little bit more, and it gets a little bit more, but it's not killing you,
right?
Because it's just 112.
And that's how a lot of guys, you are able to use twins in smaller rooms. disconnect one of the internal speakers.
Well, there you go.
You know,
I like that.
Yeah, and you do have an impedance mismatch that way, but it's not it's not a detrimental impedance mismatch because the speaker load is higher than what the output transformer wants to see. So that's a safe mismatch.
Oh, so it goes down in impedance when you hook the second speaker up.
Yeah, because 2 8-ohm speakers are going to give you a 4 ohm load. If you disconnect one, you now have an 8 ohm load.
But they're not hooked in series, right?
No, they're in parallel.
Oh, okay.
In a twin.
Yeah.
So that's one way to manage a twin in a smaller room. You know,
that's cool.
So
I don't know. We've skinned that cat 17 different ways. So I think hopefully
we helped a little bit.
Anthony
But you know, bottom line, one word answer to your question: no.
They're not going to hurt your amp.
Not going to hurt your amp. Your amp would be hurting anyway.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to be putting the hurting on the amp. It's not the attenuator.
All right, man. That's cool. Well, look, my friend, I think we have come to the end of the show.
Say it ain't so.
I don't want to.
Okay.
But I think we're here.
We are. And
so we thank everybody.
Thank everybody.
And we don't thank Nam because we would have had a guest.
You know, that's okay.
I'm just kidding.
You know what? Sometimes, and we have had requests. It's like, I love when you guys do just a show together and you talk about gear stuff and things like that. So for the people that like these episodes, I really hope you love this one.
Yeah.
I hope you love this one. So there's a little guitar stuff, a little amp stuff, a little this, a little that. I think we covered a lot of ground, and you're welcome.
Exactly. And so, until next time, my friend,
you
am Mick Marcelino, and you are Jeff Bober.
That's right. And we are collectively saying, onward.
Be sure and follow the show on Twitter @AmpsandAxis. Also, make sure you like the show on Facebook. For news, comments, and everything else, visit the webpage ampsandaxiscast.com. Thanks for listening.